Hello everyone. Thank you for joining me today in Getting Started with ABM 5 Steps. My name is Maneeza Aminy. I am the CEO and founder of Marvel Marketers, a marketing automation and ABM consultancy. Before we begin discussing the 5 steps, I first wanted to share with you our definition of ABM and ABE. We believe ABM is fundamentally balancing your overall acquisition and customer marketing strategy to be account-centric. Up until today, a lot of the work we've done in our industry is very lead and contact-centric, and all ABM is really taking those strategies and mapping out what they would look like if instead we looked at it through the lens of the account. Account-based everything, on the other hand, which I believe is more advanced, is taking a look at the entire interaction between two companies, or in other words, the acknowledgement and strategy of comprehensive account engagement throughout all touch points of both companies. So that means you really take a look and say, okay, if I want to retain an account, or if I want to improve renewals, what are all the different departments in my organization that are going to be responsible, not just sales and marketing? As we've been working with clients in our ABM practice, we've noticed some very interesting problem statements in the industry. And I wanted to share those problem statements so that we can kind of, lay a landscape for the industry. There seems to be a perceived competition between demand generation and ABM. This is absolutely not true. ABM is not here to replace demand generation. If that would be a very bad strategy. ABM is its own strategy, and it's also not brand new. A lot of folks have been doing ABM for many years, and it's really more about taking that strategy and elevating it. A lot of our clients that we're speaking with as well kind of have a stop-at-go problem, which is they sit down to try to formulate their ABM strategy, and they get stuck with either analysis paralysis, or their attention is being pulled away into too many tools, or they're overthinking it. And so it's very important that when you're building your strategy, that you build with the ability to measure quickly and swiftly. And finally, the last kind of problem statement to keep in mind as you move forward is, just like Marketo or Eloqua or Pardot or all these guys were not your strategy, right? The tool was never your strategy. Similarly, the tools you might be purchasing today for ABM, we use Engagio and other tools. The tool itself is not your strategy. You actually have a strategy, and the tool enables that strategy. So when you're sitting down to start really thinking about ABM for your organization, there are 5 main steps that you should think about. And these are the 5 steps that we work with our clients on when we're sitting down with them. Step 1 is understand or decide the role of ABM in your organization. Meaning it can't be a random set of activities that occur in your org. You have to decide for yourself what is going to be the role of ABM in your org. Is it going to be the main focus in 2017? Is it going to be a pilot program? Is it going to be a side note that we're going to have to keep selling internally to stakeholders? Really make sure you understand that. Step 2, understand what you already have in place. There's absolutely no reason for you to have to start from zero. There are very few organizations that do not already have something that you could leverage for your ABM strategy. Make sure that you identify who your champion is going to be on the sales side of the fence. I believe very strongly that marketing automation and also ABM fundamentally is designed to make sales more successful. Crafting any strategy on account-based marketing or account-based everything without the input of sales is just asking to fail. So do not forget this step. Step 4, identify your target list, and don't forget to take that target list and use it as a socialization exercise. And this is super important, because just because you are signed off on ABM as a strategy in 2017, that does not mean that anyone else in your org, or the folks that actually you need their buy-in, are also signed off on it. So it's very important that you educate and socialize your strategy with them, and identifying your target list is actually a really good way to do that. And finally, make sure, whatever your strategy is, that you build A/B testing into your strategy. Because whatever you decide is the right thing for you to do today may or may not be the right thing for you to do 6 months from now, a year from now, or after you've actually learned a bit more about your org. So let's talk about that first step. Understand or decide the role of ABM in your organization. When we work with clients, this is the kind of most critical piece. Until you decide what ABM is going to be doing, it's going to be very difficult for you to measure its success. A lot of times, the answer to this question is absolutely determined by your corporate culture. And sometimes, some of these goals, I gave you guys 3 examples, will actually work against each other. So the highest risk, highest reward role of ABM is target account acquisition. And in many ways, that's a great goal, but that is a very, very risky goal because as an example, if your sales process is 24 months, then you're going to have to wait 24 months before you actually even know if you were successful. And so while that's an amazing goal to have, it's also, you have to be careful. You have to be very cautious with that being your main goal or even your only goal. You can certainly pair that with something else. A longer term strategy, these are my favorite clients, is when we know that this stuff takes a long time. We actually don't know a lot about our organization right now. So we're going to use phase 1 of our ABM adoption to really understand what our ABM strategy should be. Notice it's very difficult for you to have strategy 1 and strategy 2 as your goals because you cannot be patient with acquisition. Third of all, you could have a sales-driven role of ABM in your org. And we get actually these, I'd say most commonly, where it's very finite. For example, the deliverable will be that we will have a first orchestrated play live for sales within X number of days. Or sometimes the role of ABM could be you actually know you have 1 or 2 really good strategies in place, really good time-proven things that your organization has used, and you're not really looking to reinvent the wheel. And so then the goal becomes, what I want to do is take those strategies that we know exist, and we want to make sure we update them with 2017 technology. Step 2, understand what you already have in place. This is very, very important. ABM is not new, and there's nobody I've talked to that doesn't have something. The very first thing you should do is you should actually get a download from sales. If you do not include sales in the crafting of your ABM strategy, you will fail. So there's data there, anecdotally or otherwise, sitting there. So it's very important to have that conversation. It could be a meeting, it could be a phone call, it could be a couple of meetings, which I find to be pretty effective. The second thing is to look at data. Why would we look at data? Because you could sit and conjecture into the future, but you likely have already sold deals that you're very happy with. Or you could have lost deals that you're really unhappy that you lost. And so if you actually log into your Salesforce, that data will start to show you, who were the ideal personas that either drove that opportunity to close one, or that at least were part of the buying cycle. If you happen to have Marketo's Opportunity Influence Analyzer, that's actually a great tool to take a look at the anatomy of opportunities. Also, make sure you don't forget to look at opportunity close loss, because knowing what didn't work is as important as knowing what did work. You also have analytics that are likely sitting there either through an ABM tool that you've purchased or an add-on tool from an existing automation platform where you could look at data like scoring. And those data points will actually tell you for opportunities, what was it that those contacts were doing related to their scoring. So it's very important to look at data so that you do not try and start from zero. Third, evaluate your systems. Sometimes clients really want to do a lot and they actually cannot execute on the strategy they define in the first step. So it's great that you want to do account-based marketing and you want to launch account scoring, but you don't have a good tool that will allow you to do that. So it's very important to evaluate your systems, understand the dependencies. At Marvel Marketers, this is our landscape right now for our account-based marketing environment. We do have Engagio, we're a strategic partner of theirs. We do have Marketo, we're also a strategic partner of Marketo's. We leverage Salesforce, Google Apps, and Engagio Scout plugin. This is our, account-based everything playing field. And so we can quickly understand, even with this visual, what are our options in terms of functionality even that will allow us to execute on our strategy. Step 3, find your champion or champions. This is very important. Without champions, and this is almost strategy agnostic. So you could literally use this sentence with marketing automation, with ABM, with predictive. It doesn't even matter. Without a champion, the best strategies will fail. If you do not find your counterparts in other areas of the org that are going to help socialize your strategy, you are going to have a much harder time executing on your strategy than you would otherwise. Really important, this actually a micro example of this is, for example, when you had Marketo Sales Insight, the best way with our clients that we were able to get Marketo Sales Insight successful was actually to pull a champion, a sales champion at a sales org, train them on Marketo Sales Insight, do a pilot time period with them, and then actually present with them back to the sales org, showing how they use Marketo Sales Insight to close leads. Similarly, if we are trying to launch let's say a brand new sales play for acquisition or renewals, first make sure you find someone who does it with you and then have them go back and tell their peers the why. Why is it their organization should adopt your strategy? You can tell them why till you're blue in the face, but them hearing it from their own peers is a completely different scenario. Step 4. Identify your target list and then use it as a socialization exercise. From what we have found, there's actually a tiered approach to acquiring that list for yourself. The first is look at opportunities and understand your ideal buyer persona against accounts that you find valuable. Then use technology to understand more. So once you've decided which companies you're interested in or what kind of companies that you've worked with in the past that you want to emulate in the future, then use technology, use account level technology to understand more. You might want to look at account scoring if you've set it up. You might look at engagement minutes like Engagio uses. You might want to use Marketo's new ABM platform. All in all, you want to make sure you leverage ABM technology to learn more. And then once you have your answers as to what has worked well in the past and compiled these into a list, then you either can stop there and get going, or you can buy or enrich more of what you know works and then get going. But the most important thing is to get going, because what you don't want to do is to ponder this step for too long because you're just convinced that there's this really, really specific target client and really, really specific buyer persona that you need before you start. Step 5, A/B test your strategy. So there's a big assumption in step 5, which is that your strategy actually allows you to stop and learn in the first place. If you have built a strategy which you can't actually even measure or look at or try to find success in for a year, then it's going to be very difficult for you to iterate on that strategy. So it's very important for you when you are setting up your strategy to build little tick marks in your strategy so that you could stop, compare, and actually course correct if necessary. If you start your strategy and it doesn't go well, that data is extremely important. It's not as great as it going well, but it certainly allows you to course correct with agility and make improvements on your strategy quickly. Finally, you always want to make sure you have a main strategy and a backup pilot against the second premise. And this is super important because your risk aversion to your main strategy is going to be very high. You don't want to deploy ABM and make these very kind of far-fetched assumptions, and if it fails, a very big investment has failed. However, with pilots are the most amazing place for you to test things out. So whatever your main strategy is, make sure when you start one additional workflow that's going to test out a second premise. The reason that's important is if your first strategy you see is not going well, your second pilot might be giving you more information. So it's super important to almost plan to make changes versus being so locked down and architected in the beginning that once you start, you actually cannot be agile. So I hope these 5 steps will be very helpful for you as you start your ABM journey. And remember, you certainly don't have to do it alone. If you'd like to learn more, we are launching an ABM training. Please use discount code AccountBased for 40% off discount on our first launch of this training in 2017. Thank you very much and enjoy.